Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to Fuel Your Legacy. And as always, we are bringing you the leaders in industry, the leaders in thought, and entrepreneurs who have successfully made the transition, not quite a gender transition, but a transition of what I believe is even a greater identity. It's kind of crazy that the people who are stuck in the old identity of corporate America or corporate world and thinking that that is the only way to go, transitioning out of that identity, at least in today's world, you almost get more flack for it sometimes. So this gentleman's name is Cesar Espino. Cesar Espino.
Yes.
And he is just a rock solid real estate investor, real estate mentor, business coach, consultant, and author of an amazing book called You Can Overcome Anything. One of the cool things about Cesar, and we're going to get into this and he'll share his story, but I love speaking with immigrants. I love speaking with people who have come to our country for whatever reason. Honestly, like there's a lot of, that's a whole political issue that I try to stay away from. But I'm in favor of as many people as want to come here and really improve themselves, improve their family's life, and improve our society. Let them come, because there's so much of these little things that you're going to hear about today that we need more of. We need some more toughness. We need some more resolution. We need some more decision and more decisiveness and just pure grit to succeed. And that, because in America, whatever the reason is, and I'm absolutely prone and guilty of this, I don't know how good I have it a lot of times, So then I get lazy, where somebody who comes from the worst or a worse situation, they come here, and even the people who are poor here are still living like kings compared to other places. And they see that contrast and they're ready to and hungry to go really thrive for their families. And so that's why I'm excited to have Cesar on and hear his story. So Cesar, go ahead and let us know just a little bit about where you came from, how you grew up, how you got into corporate America, and what was that exact point of when you decided, I need to get out of this thing, I need to transition, and then how you transitioned and how you made that work.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again, Samuel, for having me in your show. So again, my name is Cesar Espino, guys. I was born in Mexico City in really a time where at the end of the day, there was a lot of poverty, right? I mean, I was born into a very poor family. I had any luxuries or anybody that had given me something, like we say it here in a golden plate, right? The biggest thing for me, though, is that back in the day when I was born, I was only born to one parent, which is my mom. I don't know who's my biological father, right? And I was born into a family where we lived literally in a 200 to 250 square foot room that we called a house, right? At that time, it was my older brother, my grandmother, and then my mom. And it was the four of us working and living in Mexico City. One of the major things, though, is that at the age of 4, right after I turned 4, my mom decided to take her leap of faith by actually migrating into the United States, leaving me, my grandmother, and my older brother behind. And for me, that was probably one of the first pivotal moments in my life, because I had to start working at the age of 4 to be able to survive and support ourselves, to be able to have something to eat on a day-to-day basis. And we did numerous things, right? One thing that is kind of funny, I still remember, I called it the Mexican dish. There was times we didn't have a lot to eat, so we had the what I consider to be the Mexican dish, which was literally just a tortilla with grains of salt, and that's all we had. And for me, that was pretty awesome. Yet when you think about it, though, that's really nothing, right? Except that was very fulfilling. And living in a society where, you are the lowest of the lowest in terms of classifications, because Mexico is that type of country where, your pocket, it speaks for you, right? If you don't have the money, you're going to be part of the lowest classification, and the government is not going to help you. You're necessarily on your own. And so that's how my journey started. Being born into a very poor society is like, okay, is this all I have for myself? Am I ever going to be able to do anything better than just, being in this place in Earth, and not really doing more than just that, right? Um, Fast forward to about 10 years. When I was 10, my mom decided to bring us from Mexico into the States, and we migrated into the States. And that was the second time I actually came to the States, and I came to stay. Now, for me, that was very, very difficult, because I was so used to working, literally my entire childhood to survive, to not having anything, to now coming to the States and being able to have a bigger house, although we're still poor, like you mentioned, right? People here in the States, right, that are poor is not the same poorness as in a different country, right? So it was definitely an upgrade for me, for sure. That was a challenge. The second challenge is that I came to a place that I didn't know anybody. I didn't have no friends. The only person I knew was really my brother, my grandmother, my mom. I did to an extent. Yes, she left me when I was 4. So between 4 to 10, 6 years passed. I didn't really have the connection with my mom, right? I felt abandoned. I felt like I did something wrong and she left me, not understanding why she did it at that time. Now I actually do. There was a little bit of a hard feeling there. And then the last, and probably one of the biggest obstacles, is not being able to communicate, talk, or speak to people in this country, because, the language barriers. And so that was very difficult, right? There were so many different people and different cultures, and it was very hard to to get accustomed to it, and get used to all of that stuff. At the end of the day, a couple of years after that, I was able to read, write, and speak English. I was able to communicate with people. So I was going through all these different obstacles. I had a change of identity because of when I migrated to the States, my name kind of changed a little bit. I mean, there were so many different things that happened, right? And one thing that my grandma told me from when we were in Mexico, and the fact that I was working so hard as a kid, is you have to work hard, get a good job, and then live the rest of your life. And so I have that engraved in myself. Go to school, get a good education, and then go and get a good job. So I got my master's, my bachelor's. I have master's in business administration right after high school. I had a pretty good GPA. I always, for myself, decided to do just that, to make sure that I was given the opportunity to come to this country. So therefore, I was going to take advantage of that by educating myself and not falling into gangs or any of the stuff that many people that come from other countries, what I consider to be an unfortunate thing, they come and they waste that opportunity by going into the bad influences. And it's all around. There's a lot of influences like that. So anyways, I went to college, got my master's, and I did exactly that. I got a corporate job. I was my very last job. I was actually working for a worldwide company in the shipping industry for logistics. I was a project manager, pricing manager for the entire U.S., and engineer for that company too, in terms of new facility layouts and things like that. A lot of great things. I love the job. Except to me, deep down, there was something missing. And I'm like, no, this cannot be. I've come so far, and I felt like, although this job is good, is a job that's paying me way over 6 figures. I get to travel. I get to do all these great things. Deep down inside of me, something was missing. And I decided to take my leap of faith at that time. And, it took me some time. It really took me some time to do it, because I think it took me about 10 months to actually do it. I thought about it, and it took me 10 months to do it. And finally I did. And I actually gave my boss at that time a month and a half, I believe, or 2 months notice, because I said, look, I'm leaving. I'm not going to the competitor. I'm leaving because I'm going to take a leap of faith in my own, journey, which is real estate investing and all the things that I want to do. And I feel like I can do more for the community. And so that one was very scary. One thing that I got to tell you, which is kind of crazy, it's sad to know that people go to work and they're working harder for somebody else than they're working harder for themselves. And they go to work knowing really in their mind that they can lose their job that day that they go to work, but they're not afraid to go to work knowing that they might lose their job. Okay, if that makes sense. And you as a person, I said, you know what? I'm going to prepare myself and I'm going to jump off this ship so that I can take something better. That fear, you know, you want to do it. You know, you have to do it. Yet that fear is more fearful than knowing that you're going to lose your job and not have, you know, anywhere to go. At least that happened to me. And that's why it took me 10 months to take that leap of faith, because I was so fearful to say, well, what am I going to do financially? What am I going to do? You know, if things fail, right? You have all these negative thoughts coming to your mind, telling you why you shouldn't do it and you should get stuck in corporate America. Well, I finally decided to do it after 10 months. And one thing that I realized is, again, you have to work so hard on yourself before you work hard for anybody else. Number one. Number two, it's all about self-development, self-care, self-love, right? You have to create a plan for yourself to be able to take yourself to the next level, right? And as you mentioned, I'm an author. So in my book, I talk about those things. I talk about that, the leap of faith, and some of the things that I suggest you as a person need to do to be able to, you know, go to the next level. So that's more or less the idea there.
I love it. So we're gonna now dive into this, because there's some principles here that some things that I lived through that seemed a little bit similar, and then some things that were just not the same. But
okay.
I think that with most successful people who go from where I would say average or even poverty, lower social class, to higher social class, they came from a rough situation, right?
Yep.
And we'll just call it a rough situation, because that varies in different areas. But just think about this series of events, right? You're born only knowing one of your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like I cannot imagine not knowing who either one of my parents is. That just, for me, is crazy. And the fact that a lot of times you may never know. And how many people do you think, like, that you grew up with, that they're in that same exact situation, that they don't know who their dad is, or they don't know who their mom is even sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's actually more than we know it. There's a lot of people that are going through that. And you know, I'm going to be 40 in a couple of months. And to this date, I don't know who he is. I don't know his name. I don't know his background. I don't know if I have, you know, other siblings. I have no clue. And quite honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter, right? At the end of the day, though, I think there's so many people that go through that. And it could be, you know, the different situations, the different circumstances that are taking place as to why, you know, people go through that. And you know, for me, again, that was very tough. And again, one of the things that happened, you know, as not having that father figure, and then losing my mom, right? And so I think all of that in itself created, you know, the blessings that I have now. Yet it created so many different obstacles throughout my life that, you know, I you know, again, one thing that happened in my life now, and I don't see it as a mistake. It's just something that happened, is that I had a kid at the age of 15, 16, you know. And once somebody told me, I don't know if it was my older brother or somebody mentioned this, is the reason why probably I didn't know what to do at that moment in my life at the age of 16 when my kid was born, is because I never had that father figure to tell me what's right, between right and wrong, right? And so imagining, you know, me coming from a different country, still having no father figure, not having my mom for a couple of years, then coming here, trying to master the English language, going to school, and then boom, I get hit with this, you know, challenge, if you may. And now I'm a kid raising a kid, and now I have to worry about somebody else's kid. And so one thing that I did, by the way, is when my daughter was born, I said, I promise you that I would always be there for you, because I never had that father figure to be there for me. And you will never go through the things that I went through, because that's my commitment to her. And so far, I'm so happy and blessed that I've been able to do that, because I didn't have that. I didn't want my daughter to go through the same things that I went through as a kid.
Yeah, no, I love that. So it's interesting how generationally things can repeat themselves. So when I was born in my grandma's living room, which is probably not quite the same where you were born, but we moved into a house that was condemned due to faulty foundation, and our whole family. So I'm the seventh of 11 kids. So there was a lot of kids.
Wow.
Thankfully, I had both my parents, but we all slept in a room that probably was at least that size or smaller, 200 square feet. Like that was where we
Wow.
slept. We had our bathroom for the first few years wasn't really a bathroom. And like, that's how we slept. And then when I was 5 or 6, it's a little different than my mom leaving me. I don't even know if I was 5 or 6. I was probably 3 or 4 years old. And because the house was still just not completed, then my mom essentially took me, one of my older brothers, and then my 2 younger siblings, I believe. And we went to California or Nevada or Vegas. I don't know where it was. We left though. And she said, look, when I get back, there better be a house. That's what she told my dad. Somewhere we
wow.
live.
Yeah.
And so that was traumatic for me going through that experience of like a lot of uncertainty, a lot of like not really knowing what the outcome of my family situation would be at such a young age. And so I can relate-ish, not quite the same as having your mother leave you though, and having the feeling of abandonment, and then having to work at age 4 and being thrilled about a tortilla with salt. I mean, that's pretty. Just think about that. If you're listening to this, think about what is the worst position that I've ever been in my life, and this isn't like a dick measuring contest or whatever, but like,
right.
Just ask yourself. It's a form of positive psychology. I was talking to a client earlier before this call, and I was like, well, let's walk through the worst case scenarios because his life is kind of falling apart, honestly. And when you ask yourself, well, what's the worst case scenario? The reason we do that is not so we can go deeper into a negative mindset. The reason is now when we start thinking about what's the worst case scenario, and then we compare that to where life is now we feel really happy and glad about where we are today. And so thinking about that is crazy. And then when they come to America, this is funny. I grew up in Idaho.
Okay.
And it's something that I never really understood. This makes a lot more sense, right? But in Idaho, most of the people who work on the farms are from Latin America. And I'm super grateful for them because they work harder than, I went out and worked on the farm next to them, and I couldn't compete from like heart of laborers. They work harder than any white person I've ever met. And that's a compliment in my mind. But they all lived in these massive group homes where you'd have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 families living in a trailer essentially.
Wow. Yeah.
And for me, I was like, I can't imagine doing that. But it's a lot easier to imagine that if you consider where these people are coming from. What are they coming to? What they're coming to, they're living like kings. I mean, they have a house, they have air conditioning, they have things that they never had before. So in their minds, again, this positive psychology, in their minds, they're living the life. And I think sometimes that can almost feed into the mindset of go get a good job, because again, for the person who's telling you that, go get a good job, for you to be working where you're working in this corporation, it may not have been your full potential. It may not have been the best income that you could achieve, but compared to where you came from, you were essentially a billionaire or more comparatively.
Right.
When you're comparing the amount of transition, the incremental growth that you had achieved, having that steady income, as unsecure as it is, because somebody could fire you, that's so much better, and you're so much more wealthy than where they came from. So it wasn't just get a good job, I bet, in their mind. I'm betting it was like, you've arrived, right? There's no way you could fail in life if you get that job, because we know how to live at this level. And if you make $100,000 a year, I mean, that for us in Mexico, that's a lifetime of income. Like that's 3 lifetimes of income.
Right.
Take $100,000 American dollars and take it into Mexico, where you're living the lifestyle that you grew up in. I mean, you would never die. You just always have the money.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
definitely.
So, putting in perspective of what this is, the reason that that's important is so that people can put in perspective of where they're at. What's stealing their drive to win.
Right. And you brought a couple of good points. One, I believe that reality is created by validation, right? Sometimes we have to see something great happening for us to believe in ourselves to do that same outcome, right? And so again, um, you know, going back to my grandmother at that time, even my mom at that time, saying, "Hey, you you know, there's people that have come migrated here, right? So there goes that validation. They've gone to school, they've got really good jobs, and now they're working for corporate America. You too can do that kind of thing, right? So that was that engravement of go back to school, make sure you get your grades, and come out of school, and then have a good, a corporate job that's going to take you and sustain you throughout the years of your life, right? And so again, it's just creating that validation, but is that mentality where that's all people can see based on the limitations that they were given or passed on by their parents, right? It's all a generation after generation after generation. In my case, I want to break that generation off. And even with my older brother, who is also very successful, and he has followed that, get a good job, and be in corporate America. Um, we both grew identically the same, right? We both came from the same place. We both, I think, have been doing pretty good for ourselves. Even that, though, sometimes I can see a little bit of that pushback of what I'm doing now. Is that the right thing? Me leaving my job, my secure job, and being able to do this. Is that the right thing? I hear this from really good friends of mine that went to high school with me. So they said, what were you thinking? Why would you leave your job? And again, you're always going to get that because there's that fear. And sometimes, people, right, in general, the fear that they have for themselves is the fear that they have for you, right? And so if they cannot see themselves making it out, outside of the corporate world, then they cannot see you. They're kind of taking their same limitations to you, right? And so again, I believe, and on the opposite, where if somebody made it, if somebody came from a different country and somebody actually became very successful outside of the corporate America, then you too can do that. And so that's the journey that I'm in. The second point that I want to make is that, as you mentioned, there's no comparison, right? I never tell people that I want to compare my life to anybody, except what I want to be able to leave with people that have bought my book or have followed me on Facebook or any of that stuff, is that I want them to see my life story as a vehicle of things that they can possibly be faced with, the obstacles, in different forms, right? And yet it's just a vehicle to help them get out of that and move into a better, safer zone where they can actually grow and become something bigger than they think they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it because that's one of the main things. It's that ability for empathy that so many people they view as negative,
Mm-hmm.
and like, oh well, if he can't, like, because I don't believe I can do it, then I don't believe he can do it. Well, the cool thing is that they are relating themselves to you and
Right.
you to them. And so if you're able to break free from that mindset and go be successful, then it's exactly what you said, where they're still relating themselves to you, and they start to think, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. And it happens one person at a time. But
Right.
I wrote in my book, Fuel Your Legacy, and that's the whole concept and principle of the book, is why it's important for you as an individual to go be massively, wildly, financially successful and build a legacy of meaning. Because by you doing that, it's giving permission and a roadmap to all the other people who are relating themselves to you at the lower consciousness level, or socioeconomic class. You're giving them permission and a roadmap to go and change their life as well, whatever that is, right? Not everybody's
Right.
going to be interested in real estate,
Right.
but they may be interested in pottery or in
Mm-hmm.
being an artist or a musician or whatever they want to do. They may be interested in whatever. And because you succeeded in yours, they now feel that they can succeed in theirs. So I want you to talk about here. You said it took you 10 months to quit your job.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a lot of people who have been they're in corporate America. They've been blessed with the idea, the spark of intuition, the excitement, the butterflies of what would it be like if I really set out on my own journey. And they began having an affair, okay, with their dream, and their employer, right? So their employers there will say their marriage, and they're now having this affair. Nobody knows about it. It's exciting every time they think about it, but they are terrified to expose their affair and divorce their job and go all into their lover or their dream or their passion. And for you, it took you 10 months. I mean, for me, it didn't take 10 months, so I can't relate with that. Came from a different mindset. But what were you thinking as far as like, what were all the emotions that were building over those 10 months, and what finally made you pull that trigger?
Yeah. So before I decided to take the leap of faith, I was already working as a real estate investor, right? So again, relating to that marriage and that affair, right? So I was working a full-time job, traveling, and at the same time, I was already doing real estate investing. And it was becoming very difficult to balance both things. My job being in corporate and being the fact that I was always traveling was very demanding from that sense. Managing people, managing projects, it was just a lot of work. And so, I decided, I need to just, I need to choose one or the other. If I really want to grow my own business, I need to let this go, or either I let my real estate go and then I focus 100% on my job. I think that was part of that argument or that fight that I was having. Is like, is this the right thing? It came back to those negative thoughts, perhaps, right? Am I doing the right thing? Questioning myself, is me leaving my good paying job, is this going to be satisfying enough? How am I going to make it? And so it was all these different things that really just held me back. I mean, that held me back. Now, aside from that, I myself was also going through what I consider to be my transformation phase. There was a lot of things that happened during those 10 months where I lost a lot of people. I lost friends. I lost relationships. I lost a lot. And again, that's the fear. That's the fear that when you're going through something as major as that, right? Sometimes, the fear of losing the money, the house, the wife, the spouse, the girlfriend, whatever it is, right? It's like, you know what? I just don't want to lose this. Even if it's a bad situation, you don't want to lose that because you're so afraid of what's on the other side. A lot of times, on the other side is what you're being seeking for. Yet because of the unknown, you don't do it. And that's what happened to me. I knew that the real estate was going to be my vehicle. I just didn't know if I was, I guess, capable of or not to do that. I didn't know if I was, ready for that challenge, right? Lucky enough, the reason why I think it took me 10 months is because, again, I was going through this major transformation phase, for myself. And I finally said, you know what, after I came to the realization that although I love my job and it's a good job, it was not fulfilling. There was something deep down missing. And I said, I have to just do it. And that moment that I did, it was very scary, to be honest with you, because I'm like, oh my God, I actually freaking do this. I just did the letter, sent it to my boss, and I'm waiting for him to call me and tell me what the hell's going on, right? It was very, very scary. Yet I prepared myself for that. And finally I did it. But I think that, the biggest thing is that is fear. And then fear comes in different forms. Okay. And I think it was that fear of the unknown, fear of who am I going to lose throughout the journey. Fear of, am I doing the right thing for myself, right? And my family, and that kind of stuff. And so once you're able to conquer that, you need to do that. And one thing that I throughout my self-development, one thing that I learned a lot is that at any point in your life, you got to just take that leap of faith. You have to jump, and I think, just like if you're going skydiving, right? Once you're on that plane, that's pretty much the end of it. Once you get on that plane and you're all the way above, there's no turning back. You have to jump, right? And throughout that jump, it may not be as fun as you want it to be at the beginning, yet at the end of the day, it's going to be very rewarding. And people have to be able to say, you know what, enough is enough. I would not allow fear to take the best of me and the opportunity, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and go forward with that. And so to me, that was what I had to do at that point.
I love that. So something that he said, I'm going to kind of expound on it. Fear manifests itself in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned this at other points in my life, but it just stuck out to me right now. For you who's listening, if you're sitting there thinking, well, how is fear manifesting? Ask yourself, because all of these things, they're all symptoms of fear. And some people, fear is going to come out in withdraw, which means they're going to withdraw from a situation because they're scared of it. Some people, fear is going to come out as anger. So if you have people in your life, you're like, that person is angry all the time, or that person has a super short temper, or I have a super short temper, whatever it is. Have some compassion for that person and go and ask them, what is it that you're afraid of? Mm-hmm. Right? They are not angry just because they're angry. Their anger is a defense mechanism to something that they're afraid of. And so have compassion for them, and rather than responding with anger and matching their anger with your anger, calm down yourself and say, okay, what is it that I'm afraid of? Or what is it that you're afraid of? And have that conversation with them. Anxiety is another area that fear comes out in. Depression, another way of demonstrating fear. Sorrow is another way of demonstrating fear. Like bulimia, anorexia, sex addiction, porn addiction, drug addiction, whatever it is. All of these things, they're all symptoms of fear. Mm-hmm. In one form or another. And so you have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm afraid of? And why am I turning to XYZ behavior to mask my fear?
Yep.
And that's a huge question that more people could be asking themselves. I think if they did and really were able to journal on that, their lives could be transformative, which is, I love that. So I'm curious, if you were to focus on a specific habit, mindset, or behavior that you've used to create a meaningful legacy for yourself and your daughter and your family, what would that be, and how can we adopt that into our lives?
Yeah, I took this from the Miracle Morning, and I don't know if you read that book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's things there, some principles that are there that I really enjoy and really appreciate. And so I took some of the principles, which I do now to this day, which is, really, again, working on yourself harder than anybody else, right? And what I mean by that is exactly that. What am I doing today that's going to move me to the next level in whichever form, right? It doesn't matter. It could be in my personal life, it could be on my relationships lives, or my work, right? And so for me, I've adopted the fact that I make the point of writing something every day. I'm journaling something every day. It could be, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. It could be the experience, right? That's number one. Number two, I read every day, right? I want to make sure that I continue to expand my mind as much as I can, because I think that, it's funny because back in the day, I didn't even like reading. I mean, I never liked to read. And the only reason I would read something is because I had to do it for my English class. Other than that, I didn't like to read until recent, right? And even now, I don't like it. I feel like it's one of those things, right? I just came out of that 75 hard challenge. And so it's kind of, along with that too, is you have to be committed, right? You have to be committed on whatever it is that you're going to do. Because if you're not committed, you're cheating yourself. You're not cheating anybody else but yourself, right? And so you have to be committed. So with that 75 hard challenge is the same thing as the things that I do every day. It's like, I got to read, I got to write. Okay. I have to try to do some sort of exercise every day, because one thing that I realize more so now that I'm getting older is that we have to take care of this vehicle that we're all in, right? Which is yourself, your body. This is the vehicle that's carrying you through this journey called life. If you don't take care of your vehicle, you're going to break down any time. And then what's going to happen? Whatever efforts you have for you or for your family or for the legacy that you're trying to bring in are pointless if you're not taking care of yourself. So that's another thing that I engraved is, what am I doing today to become or make better choices when it comes down to eating and or any of that stuff, right? Or just doing the healthy stuff. The last thing I like to do is creating action. Create an action plan. I don't necessarily believe in goals. I believe more in actions, right? Because we have New Year resolutions. That's kind of a goal, but that never happens, or nothing happens, after that. So I create an action, and then I break it down in a couple of different terms. Number one is, let's just say, for instance, I want to take a trip to Egypt. I never been there, right? So then I'm going to create an action. That's my ultimate goal. right? I have the end in mind. That's where I want to be. How did I get there? Okay, I need to find out how much it is to fly over there, how much is the hotel, how much money I'm going to be spending. Find out, create that budget. Now create another action that's going to say, okay, how can I start saving that money to be able to have it, right? And then the last thing is it has to be time definite. You have to define the time. Even if you don't accomplish that, you have to put a time against it, because now that's driving you to doing that. And then review it as much as you can, every day, right? And the last thing I do affirmations every day too. I mean, I'm very big on that. I create different affirmations for me, whether it's through my real estate, through just self-motivation, self-care, any of that stuff, right? One thing that I'll talk about is when I did this book, I exactly did that. I knew I wanted to write a book. I ended up putting, I said, I'm going to have this book ready by X date. Each day I'm going to do this many pages. And even if I didn't accomplish that, I had a target that I needed to accomplish on a day-to-day basis. And I knew when I wanted to have it done, right? So that's what I would probably say are some of the things that people should do on a day-to-day basis. And we forget some of those things because we get too lazy, or we end up watching TV, or some of the things that are not productive, or are not helping us out at all.
That's awesome. How long did it take you to write your book?
It took me, I would say, trying to remember, I would say about 3 months or so.
And did you have it self-published? Did you have a publisher?
I had a publisher.
Okay.
Yeah. Publisher and editor. Yeah. So I had the idea. Well, actually, I didn't really have the idea. Somehow something tell me, you should write a book, right? And write about your story, and you can probably, with that story, you can empower more people. And I'm like, talking to myself, I'm like, is this the right thing to do or not? And finally, I decided to write the book, and I started this New Year's 2019. And I said, by the end of February, I will have my book done. And I actually got it 2 weeks before the end of February.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had my book. I had a very similar goal that I was like, man, by this year, I wanted to publish my first book. I did. And after I published my first book, I was like, man, this is a lot easier than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
So many people put it off because they think it's this way overwhelming thing. But it's a lot easier than I thought it would be. And that's not to say it's super easy, right? It's just easier than I thought it would be.
Right.
And after doing one and recognizing kind of the value that people are getting out of the value people are getting out of the book, I'm like, man, I have so much more to share. And it's very likely that this will happen. I will have another book published. It'll be a journal. It'll be a book with probably 3 chapters in it at the beginning, and then a journal to help people identify who they are, their identity, and transition from traumatic experiences or positive experiences into a life of love and gratitude. And that will be published by, if not by the end of November, definitely by mid-December. So you can get that printed by then, buy it on Amazon or wherever else you want to buy it. And so that'll happen by then. And then I'll have another 2 books by my birthday in February. So,
awesome. Congrats.
All the content is there. It's okay. Now we just need to go through and edit this. I have the content. I've been making this content. How do I go through and edit it and make it something that's readable and able for people to gain from? So that is, it's been really incredible actually to just take that leap of faith and say, I don't care if it's perfect. I don't care if I'm doing it the right way. I'm going to act and do it. And I think that's awesome when you said an action plan is more important than a list of goals.
Right.
Create an action plan and how you're going to accomplish that. So what role do you think understanding money played or plays, I mean, it's still playing, in you building your legacy?
Yeah. I guess the first thing I want to tell you is many people make the excuse that they need money to become somebody bigger, or you hear the saying, you need money to make money. Yeah, you probably do, except there's ways for you to get the money, or there's ways for you to not allow that fear of not having that money do the next step over, right? And so that's, I guess, the very first thing I want to be able to tell people is that don't allow that to stop you from whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. The money will come. If you have the right idea, if you're working, you have a game plan, somebody's going to help you with that. And I do believe that. And again, I see that time after time where the only thing they hear is they're manifesting the fact that there's no money, there's too much debts, too much of this. And then they let that just, pretty much drop them off their dream. So that's the first thing. The second, I do believe that, again, going back, it is critical in the sense of, you need some money to get things going. But I think more important is the idea, is the action, right? Again, kind of going back to the book, and I don't know if this is the same with you. When I decided to write the book, it wasn't for me to make money. It wasn't for me to create any of that. It was more, I want somebody to read my book and hope that I change their life. Or I want to leave a legacy for my daughter or for my grandkid or whoever, right, down the line, right? And that was really the intention. Again, it's more of the action and more of the intention, and then everything will follow. Right now, I'm also working on a Spanish version because I've gotten so many great feedback, and I'm actually taking my book in Spanish because the Spanish community, has asked me, numerous times that, they would love to have this book in Spanish, right? Again, it's really that empowerment of that. In real estate, one of the things that we talked about is, OPM, other people's money, right? There's a way, if the deal makes sense, you can definitely find somebody that's going to help you or fund that idea for you. And I see it in many different things, right? Whether it's mentoring programs, whether it's, different business avenues, you might need a little bit of investment to get started. And once you get started, now you have to capitalize on that through your actions and make sure you make it bigger, right? So I guess my biggest thing is do not allow fear, the fear of not having money to stop you from moving forward. And then that'll come through.
Absolutely. I love that. The poor belief leads you to give up on your dream. So understanding that there is money out there. But first, and I love that you said this. So many people miss this, but the idea or the value that you're offering, you need that first. If you're walking into a situation, a transaction, a real estate transaction, a deal, a business, even if you're employed by an employer, I had a conversation about this with a client the other day. Even if you are walking in with an employer, you're walking in thinking, what can I get out of this employer? Most people, that's what they're thinking. How much can I get out of this guy? How much salary can I get paid? Rather than walking in thinking, where can I add the most value? If you walk into a job interview or a transaction or whatever it is, and you're thinking, where can I add the most value? Where can my ideas be the most serviceable? If that's how you're approaching every potential opportunity, then the income will come in more ways than you ever believed possible. Because the question is, what value are you offering? No company is going to hire you if they think that you are a net negative value. They're going to hire you because they see value in you for their company, and they believe that they can make more money on your value than they're going to pay you. If they didn't believe that, they wouldn't hire you. Nobody hires somebody that they know they're going to lose money on, or that they think they're going to lose money on. They hire people who they believe they're going to make money on that value. And so identifying, okay, what value is it that I'm walking in with? What value are they going to pay me for? And if I can make that value bigger, if I can add more value to what they think they're going to have, then my income will increase. Because now I'm selling them that I have more value than they think I had.
Right. And sorry, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
So I was going to say, and not knowing, where you stand or where people stand, right? For work, that's exactly that. I mean, I do business consulting. So one of my clients, I was talking to them and I said, one thing that we have to do as a company, the company that you have right now, is you have to be able to differentiate yourself from the competition, right? And how you do that is it comes down to customer service. Go above and beyond the work that you're doing. Bring more value than what they're paying for, right? And it really comes down to building relationships. So that's what I told my what I was working with my business client. Now, The entrepreneurs, on the other hand, is I would say is if you're working for profits instead of working for value, you're doing it wrong. Okay, an entrepreneur should be working for value, not for profit. A lot of new people, when they start their journey of entrepreneurs, it's like, again, I left this job because I want to make money, right? And everybody, more or less are doing that, except the difference is the actions you're taking. So I would say that's huge in my book is do not work for profits, work for value.
Yep, totally. So I'm curious if this is, you're doing business coaching, you're doing real estate investing, you also are getting into more of the financial realm as well. If
Yep.
somebody wanted to work with you, Cesar, where would they go? Where do they get access to you, learn more about you, your book? You have a website. Like, where do they get access to you? And is there anything that you'd want to give them or offer them as a kind of thanks for listening, and we'd love to meet up with you?
Yeah, definitely. So anyone can find me on my website. My own website is Cesar, Cesar, Espino. So it's really my first name, middle initial, and last name .com. You can find my book. You can actually find all the different things that I'm doing, from NLP to business coaching to real estate mentoring. So for anyone that wants to get into real estate investing, I do have a mentoring program, and I will be offering that to any of your viewers if they want to, by giving them $800 off that program. So they can go in that and they can find that. Just send me a quick message, and you can actually go to my webpage and send me a message from there, or look at all the things that I have. I also did a co-author of another book, and so if somebody decides to get my book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No, I will give you the other book for free, and I'll send it out to all the viewers.
Awesome. I love that. So definitely check that out. There's going to be links in the show notes here. You'll also have the correct spelling of his name on there as well. So if you're like, where do I go? Plus the link to his website will be there, but just in case, the correct spelling of his name will be there. I don't know if you're driving or sitting in the car or sitting in bed, at the gym, wherever you're listening to this, you may not be in the perfect optimal spot to stop and take notes. But if you can, do so. But definitely you can always check back and hit the links to go to that. So this is the second last part of the thing, and it's my second favorite, right? My favorite is the last question, and so I'm super excited to hear your answer to. I think you have a good grasp of where you're going, and I've seen some consistency throughout this episode, so I think it'll be a good answer. For this next session called Legacy on Rapid Fire. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions, looking for one word to one sentence answer. I talk too fast sometimes. Get excited. Yeah, so this is Legacy on Rapid Fire. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Okay, let's do it. So what do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Sometimes it's your own self.
Okay, so you have to expand on it, because if you just say myself, what about yourself is holding you back?
Yes, I believe that sometimes we're creating too limiting beliefs of ourselves, right? And so you have to be able to get out of your head and get into the real world, right? Nobody can hold you back. You either have the ability to take action or not. You can learn and teach as much from many people as much as you want. At the end of the day, it comes down to you. What are you willing to do for yourself? And so therefore, don't hold back.
Awesome. And what do you believe the hardest thing you've ever accomplished has been to this point in your life?
For me, saying enough is enough and taking the leap of faith.
Awesome. And what's your greatest success at this point in your life?
Building relationships with so many great people, and being able to reach people in different levels.
Fantastic. I love that one. What is one more secret that you believe contributes to your success?
Determination. And I would say just having the drive of not being who I was when I was a kid.
Awesome. And what are 2 or 3 books that you'd recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
I would definitely say read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I would do The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And the last one, I read so many. I also like Millionaire Success Habits by I forgot his name right now. Dean Graziosi.
Awesome. And also, I want to just give him a shout out, because we talked about it a few times, but his book, read his book as well. you can do anything, even if it's hard, right? What's that exact?
You can overcome anything, even when the world says no.
Yeah, read that as well. So and you can get that on Amazon or his website.
Yep.
And then he'll send you out the other one that he co-authored as well. So this is the final question, best favorite thing of the whole thing, why I do the whole episode. My favorite, because I get to pretend that you're dead.
Okay.
You're thrilled about that, right? No. So we want to know if you died and then had the opportunity to come back 6 generations from now. So this is your great grandchildren. 6 generations from now, you got to come back, and they were all sitting around a table discussing your life. They were talking about your legacy. They were talking about what Cesar left behind, who he was as a person, and really what he created while he was here. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
Wow, that's a really good question, and I love it. I think for me, the one thing that I would want them to do is exactly what I'm working so hard right now. And the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now is I really want to empower and help people as much as I can. And so what I want them to be saying is that not only was I humble from where I came from, my beginnings, I care about people. I care about people now. I cared about people. And I was always willing to give back. I was always willing to take people and show them even when things were so difficult, right? And so I would like for my grandkids or great grandkids to be saying that, you know what, he lived by what he talked. He walked the talk, and he helped out so many different people through all the different things that I have going on, right? Being able to just empower them. See, the one thing though that I want, or anybody for the matter, to remember is that I don't want to hand anybody nothing, because then they don't have the value, right? Just like me, I see the difference between my little brother and myself. And so what I want people to know is that, he educated people. He didn't just give them, the information. He educated people. And by that education, their life became 10 times better than what it was before. He improved their current situation by creating a win-win solution for them. So that's what I want to talk about.
I love that. See, I knew it would be consistent with the whole conversation. That's why I was excited to share this. Some listeners, they already know this question's coming up. A lot of listeners, they have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say the listeners, but the guests on the show. And it's always fun to see. Only a few times have I had somebody say something that's completely not consistent with how they're living their life. But it's good because it throws a check in, and they have to think, okay, well, that's a good question. Maybe there's things I need to change in my life. But I love the direction you're going. I love everything about it. And thank you so much, Cesar, for taking the time to be on the Fuel Your Legacy podcast, sharing your expertise, your passion, your heart, your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and for your audience. Thank you guys for listening to this. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. We'll catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.